What is up, everyone? Please take a second to hit that like button. The more likes that we get in a short period of time, the more people the algorithm will bring into the chat to come hang out with us and see what's going on. So please hit that like button. Old man Walter is already 6 minutes late to his own live, but that's okay. We're used to it by now. I don't know what's going on with Odyssey. If you're watching on Odyssey, I cannot see anything. It won't even let me into the live. So my apologies if I'm not responding to your guys' text. I'll try and get back in there in a moment. Let me send out these notifications, so just give me a second. Oh yeah, somebody just reminded me. Thank you. So I'm assuming that this speech is not supposed to be very long. They scheduled Old Man Walter at 2:45 and then the press briefing with Jen Psaki at 3 o'clock. So they only expected this to be 15 minutes long. And he's already almost 10 minutes late. So we'll see how this goes. Usually when this happens, he won't show up and we'll end up just watching Jen Psaki and everyone will be giving me shit about how my title's wrong. Like, I'm sorry that I can show up, but the puppet at the White House can't. Like, my apologies. Yeah, Chris, that could be it. He can't remember his script. Can't remember it. You know, they give him a piece of paper. He's got a teleprompter. He's got a person in his ear. They got the questions all selected, the answers all wrote out. He still can't get it right. Yeah, he probably won't be around much longer. They'll boot him out and they'll put Harris in charge, and then we'll all be really screwed. Channel Q, this did not show up on your feed. Yeah, we could be being shadow banned because I just said YouTube 3 times, kind of like Candyman, and now they're just like floating around my system here, checking out my IP address and all that. Let me check on these other lives and make sure everything's running correctly. What's up, everyone on Twitch? What's up, everyone on Odyssey? Is the title messed up on Odyssey? Because it shouldn't be. I set up a whole new live. I don't know why Odyssey's giving me trouble today. Odyssey and Rumble is so difficult. All the other live streaming platforms, you get a URL and you get a key. You put it into your system. And then whatever you type into your system as far as like a title and description and stuff, when you go live, it's supposed to just create a whole new live on that platform. But with Odyssey and Rumble, they make you type in a new URL and key every single time you go live. And that may not seem like a big deal, but when your key is like 36 numbers and letters just randomly, and you have to go into your system settings and make changes every single time you go live, it is super daunting. It is a pain in the ass. And then to go through all the work and then have it not even function correctly is just, it's frustrating, but it's worth it because at least they don't censor us. So I will get that title updated if you guys are still looking at the old title. It's Odyssey's fault, not mine. What's up, everyone on Rumble? Thank you guys for being here. Don't forget to hit that Rumble button. That's the equivalent of a like on that platform. Try and bring some new viewers into the chat and see what's really going on in the world. What's up, Daz Boomer? What's up, MRK? What's up, Sherry? Come on, guys, let's get those likes up. 451 people watching, but only 261 likes. Let's get those likes up. You don't have to like it for old man Walter. They can't tell if you guys are thumbs up and or thumbs down. And you see on their platform, they don't even let you do that. If you go to their live, you can't comment or nothing. So just hit that like button. It helps our channel grow. It helps the truth get out there. It brings new members here to realize that they should have been hooligans this whole time. What's up, WMM? What's up, Eric? Everything's going all right. For the most part, you know, country's on fire, but unfortunately, we're all starting to become desensitized to it. RV life, no, it's not hit like or be banned. Not that harsh. I'm kind of harsh, but I'm not that harsh. Did you guys see that Antifa was messing with me on Twitter? I had shared some sort of post. Well, actually, I guess this is pretty relevant. For those of you that don't know, there is a mother of one of the military members that was killed in Afghanistan from those explosions that happened. I'm trying to be delicate with how I word this. You know, old man Walter, there's lots of images of him checking his watch and this, that, and the other while greeting those grieving parents, and also you know, going through the process of all that really bad stuff that comes with bringing our troops home under a flag. And so you know, he's very disrespectful. We've seen I mean, he's Trash Panda, we already know that. But apparently one of these mothers spoke out and openly was blaming him, saying it was his fault, and airing her grievances, you know, grieving mother, of course. And I guess he was very disrespectful in reaction, walked away from her while she was talking. I mean, it was like she wrote out this huge list of describing what happened. Well, when she made the post, they banned her on everything. She's like blackballed on the internet right now. You know, she was just basically giving her personal story of how she feels the last time she's seen her son, spoke to him, what all they enjoyed together as they bonded, and then how Biden's mistake and how he handled everything cost her son. And that, to me, seems pretty reasonable. Well, she made those posts, and she became blackballed. They banned her on Facebook. They banned her on Instagram. Other people are starting to share her story and stuff like that again. Not again, but they're spreading it out there on their own platforms. And I guess Fox has contacted her, and they're going to interview her today. And so we're going to get our hands on that interview once we can, and we will share that all over the internet, because that's it's an eye-opener for people who don't believe the censorship is real, for people who don't realize how serious this kind of stuff is. It's an eye-opener. It will rattle people awake, let them know this is really happening to Americans of all size, shape, color, beliefs. And so we will get a hold of that, and we will share that everywhere. And that's all I was really saying. Is I made a post on Twitter. For those of you follow me on Twitter, it gets a little spicy. It's the only place where I can speak openly and not get attacked, and I don't know why. Everybody else gets banned off Twitter. Twitter lets me say whatever I want. But yeah, so I shared the post about her getting ready to be interviewed and her being blackballed and stuff. And all I said was, we're going to get a hold of this when the interview comes out, and we're going to share this all over. Well, then some toaster, Antifa, anti-cop, burn a building down for justice person decides to quote my tweet and write this big paragraph just totally unrelated to the subject. How I'm corny and people like me only care about soldiers when they die, and anti-war means anti-war, and I'm pro-Bush and pro-Trump, and I don't know what, they were like going off. And so I banned them. Well, then I started catching that, what I believe is the same person, coming all over my YouTube, trying to write stuff and flag my videos and stuff like that. So now they're banned on here too. But we'll see what happens, because, those cockroaches, they hang out together. So we'll see. It wouldn't be the first time a toaster came for me. For some reason, they don't like me. I say some truth. I'm like, there's only XX or XY. Oh man, I said that, and like 15 toasters came out of the woodwork and wanted to come for me on all platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. They were trying to show up on my YouTube. Stupid. Mind your own business. Like, I'm not even saying anything to you guys. Like, you can be a toaster if you want to. Like, that doesn't bother me at all, but don't come over here, because I'll put you out there. I'll put you right on the live, make you look stupid. Kills me. Can't believe the nerve of these people. You don't even know who you are. You want to come tell me about me. Rough stuff. Kills me. Thank you so much, Glass Cow, for joining the membership program, and welcome to the family. You're officially a hooligan. Thank you so much, Indigo, for hosting me on your Twitch. I appreciate it. Yeah, Madeline, they are anti-truth. Interesting. I scrolling through TikTok, which I try not to do too much, but you'd be surprised how much truth you find on there now. Apparently the censorship hasn't happened. It's probably because it's Chinese ran and they want to hear what Americans really think, so they can collect data on us. But regardless of that, scrolling through, seen somebody who openly stated that they were gay, which totally cool, good for them. And they were getting harassed by either a conservative or Republican or both, kind of saying like, you're a Kool-Aid haired weirdo, blah, 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 whatever, which we've heard a lot. And this person spoke up and was like, I'm actually a Republican. I actually love America. And I don't participate in LGBTQ, XYZ, whatever it's called, because they feel that they have to pull down someone else in order to bring themselves up. They don't mind that there's straight pride marches, because there should be. If there's gay pride marches, there should be straight pride marches. They don't support the rainbow flag because it's a symbol of hate because of the way it's being used. And on and on and on. And I thought that was pretty awesome, because that's the kind of Americans that I respect. You can be whatever you want to be. You can feel however you want to feel. You can believe whatever you want to believe. But don't take somebody else's freedoms away to make your voice louder. That's trash panda. That's what we stand against. Like, and that's what's wrong, is there's too much gang mentality going on where, you know, everybody that's gay gets classified as a Democrat. Everybody that waves an American flag is automatically a racist or a Nazi. You know, like, all this stuff is gang mentality. And that's why, like, when I go do a march, I just say, you know, we're just proud Americans. You can be of whatever you want to be. You can believe whatever you want to believe. As long as you support the flag and you support the Constitution, you should be here. You should be happy. Like, you should be proud of where you are. It's all those other people that are trash panda. If you're trying to change the country for the worse, you want this place to be communist, you want to join some gang stuff, whatever's coming to you should come to you. And that's just my personal opinion. But, you know, that's how it goes. That's how it goes. A lot of people don't realize they're putting gang over country. When they're saying, like, you know, I don't want to say anybody specifically, but they're like, oh, I belong to this organization, or I belong to this kind of group on either side, left or right. They are putting their gang over their country. Like, yeah, it's supposed to represent, you know, that they're either proud of the country or they don't like the way the country is, depending on what side they are. You're supposed to be proud to be an American. Your beliefs and stuff can be whatever they want to be. That's the point of being an American, is you have the freedom to be what you want to be. And that's what's supposed to unite all of us. And there's not enough of that happening. There's not enough unity because people are too busy picking sides and joining groups and this, that, and the other. And every once in a while I'll get somebody say, oh yeah, well, you're a hooligan, blah, blah, blah. We don't join up. We don't get out in the streets and march and be like, oh, hooligans, and have a song and this, that, and the other. We're just a group of individuals that all hang out together online and find information and seek the truth. That's it. If we were to ever unite in person, we would be united as Americans, or just simply people who love America. Because I know there's some foreigners, and maybe that's not the correct term, but there's people outside of America that totally believe in what we do, that totally support our actual American values, not the crap that people are trying to push and change our country to. So, I mean, if we were to ever be together, it would be just for the love of America. That's it. Like, that's all there is to it. It's, I don't know. But seeing that TikTok video and just seeing, like, something new was very refreshing. To see somebody who is basically being bullied by both sides. And to stand up and still be like, fuck you guys. Like, I'm an American. I love the Constitution. I love our country. And y'all can eat shit if you don't like it. I was like, hell yeah. I was like, you're awesome. American flag. Like, that's cool as hell. Thank you so much, GM, for your donation and your support. I really appreciate you being here. Well, old man Walter, you're late as hell, son. You're almost, you're 25 minutes late. Let me see what's going on with Jen Balsacki. She's supposed to start in, well, she might have already started. Just give me a moment. All right, so we're supposed to have a press briefing with Jen Balsacki in about 20 minutes, but it is on a different live, so I have to kind of swap back and forth to figure out who's going to show up first. Is it going to be Jen Balsacki or will it be old man Walter? Is my title going to be a lie or is it going to be right on target? Only they will be able to decide. So yeah, I don't know what old man Walter does when he's not live. We used to see President Trump all the time. He was around all the time. We were never wondering where he was at. I wish things were different, because they really suck right now. XRP, yeah, I seen that. Wikipedia has listed as Taliban victorious in who won the war in Afghanistan. Can't really blame them. I mean, they did an insurrection. They took over the country. China acknowledged that they were now the new Afghan government. I believe some other countries did as well. We did not necessarily come out and say that, but now all of a sudden our troops are marching side by side with the Taliban, even though they're still hunting down people, beheading them, hanging them from helicopters, and doing other terrible things. Yeah, I mean, how could you say otherwise? How could you say otherwise? Like, they got what they wanted. They executed the mission. So, I don't know. Johan, Alex Jones used to be on YouTube. He's banned. He's like blackballed on everything. He used to be on Facebook too until what happened in January happened, and then they took him off of Facebook. He's on Twitch and I think his website, and that's it. Yes, Robert, the Taliban is terrorists. There is no reason we should be working with them. I mean, they shouldn't exist. They should catch some freedom seeds and no longer exist. What's up, Thomas? Let me check some of these other chats. I don't want to ignore anybody. I didn't even pull up my Facebook. Just a moment. What's up, everyone on Facebook? Yeah, Jose, Walter Biden, he does not care about attending his own press conference. He doesn't. What's up, Debbie? What's up, Sherry? What's up, Brandon? I appreciate you being here, but don't post links in my chat because you're kind of encouraging people to leave the live, and that is counterproductive. What's up, Lori? Thank you guys all on Rumble. I appreciate you guys. What's up, everyone on Odyssey? I got to get that title fixed. Let's see what happens first. Because if we end up with Jen Balasaki, then I need to update that title to that. So we're going to wait. I will update the title. When we start rolling, something's on the screen. Try and remind me if I don't jump right on it. Thank you so much, Chris and Fiona, for your donations and your support. I really appreciate you guys. Fiona, so there was two fathers that spoke on Hannity last night. Maybe we'll be able to get a hold of those links, and we'll get those shared out as well. What's up, Cindy? Yeah, Dig Dog, there's a lot of veterans that are hooligans, and especially a part of the Discord. So if you're not a part of the Discord, you should definitely be a part of the Discord. I've created a chat specifically for veterans, and hooligans are pretty respectful of chats that are like that. I have a chat that's dedicated towards female hooligans called the Chick Chat. Very rarely, and that's probably our oldest exclusive chat, and most hooligans respect that. So if you need a place to be around like-minded individuals or people that have seen the kind of things that you've seen, there's a place for you in the Discord. Thank you so much, Adam, for your donation and your support. I really appreciate you. Yes, Event 201, I read about that 3 months into the plague. And I think a lot of people should read into it because it's like a whole plan that happened before it happened. I mean, it's like almost word for word everything we're going through. I think the biggest thing is that people don't read. And it's hard for me to even say that because honestly, to be 100% honest with you, from 3rd grade to like 12th grade, I was in special ed for reading. Okay, so believe me when I tell you I do not like reading. Okay, I don't like it. But you have to read, because everything you see on the screen that's provided by the government or mainstream news is a lie. It's all a facade. It's a movie you're watching. But if you actually read, if you actually Google stuff, and lots of hooligans know, because lots of hooligans are providing information to the Discord every single day. If you actually go and read, you can see the truth. They tell it right to you. They tell you how all of this stuff works, where it's all going, where we're heading, you know, the plans, who's involved, all that, like I showed you guys yesterday or the day before. Fauci's wife is the head of NIH. Well, she's the head of the research department investigating, and she's the one that provided the information to the FDA to get the FDA to approve the jab. Like, it's all tied in together. You just go look. It's not some conspiracy crap. Not all conspiracies are theories. I think that should be pushed a little bit more too. If you just read into it, you can see. You can Google it. It's not like a bunch of cube crap where you're like taking numbers off a plane and doing math and then seeing if the sky's purple and then, you know, touch your butthole twice and then boom, you can come out with an answer. It's not like that. You can literally just Google stuff and it will tell you. Or go to DuckDuckGo if you really want like the flat raw truth. It's right there. If you ever have a question about something or something really doesn't make sense, you just Google it and read. Don't just look for the videos. Don't look for the images. Don't look for the Q crap. Don't rely on, you know, Alex Jones or somebody to provide the information. Even though he's pretty right lately, you can actually go look it up. You can totally look it up, and their own documents will tell you. Like, their own documents will tell you the truth. The thing is they've banked on Americans not reading, which blows my mind, because I've always felt like everyone loves reading more than I do, and I hate reading. But I've come to the realization that it is very necessary to be able to tell what is going on. Yeah, Startpage is a good, honest browser as well. I know that all sounds really ridiculous, but it's the truth. I mean, it's the truth. If you don't believe me, Google it. Google it. I mean, I showed you guys on the live the other day. You can see how this is all tied together, how they're getting things passed, how they're getting this information twisted to work for their benefit, and how it's all nonsense. It's all nonsense. Go look up what Chimera is. I was seeing that on Fox News a couple months ago. They were like, oh yeah, the Chimera is a big part of how we were able to make this happen. Well, in 2015, Chimera was for cloning technology to try and figure out how to clone people. And then they found out that it mostly functioned in using pigs and all this other stuff. And now they talk about it like it's just some natural thing. It's not. It's an abomination. It's all man-made bio nastiness. Look up Chimera. You will find some stuff that you can't unsee. And now they act like that's just some word that means something about science. No, it's like science experiment. It's rough. It is rough stuff. The truth is out there. You just got to Google it. There is stuff you can read that I can't even show on the live because it get all my channel shut down at once. It is rough stuff. Well, let me check on Jembal Saki's live and see who's gonna. It's a race to see who's gonna go live first. Let's get these shout outs in really quick though. Let's see. Thank you so much, Red Road Homestead, for joining the membership program, and welcome to the family. You're officially a hooligan. And thank you so much, Slenderella. I really appreciate the donation, the support. Thank you for being here. Oh, Slenderella, you're on Getter. I am not on Getter. I've been resistant to getting on Getter. I got on Parler or whatever it was called. I was on it for a day, and then the next day the stuff happened in January, and then, and I don't know who all knows, I know most people know this at this point, when Parler went down, they forfeited all of their data to the FBI. The FBI used the data from Parler to trace every single person that they arrested for being at the Capitol on the 6th. So because you had an account with Parler, you gave up all your personal information to the FBI. Which, if you weren't doing nothing wrong, like me, my ass was at home, then you were totally clear. But if you were anywhere near the Capitol on the 6th, you got arrested or you got a visit by the FBI. So people are like, oh, let's get on Getter. I think it's a fish trap. I think they're fishing. They're fishing for your information. They know that you're no longer providing real information to Facebook, Twitter, and all these other platforms that have been around for years. You're not doing it anymore. You're not participating in the game. And I've been saying that about Facebook for years. You tell Facebook everything, who your family members are, where you've been today, what you eat in a day, what your favorite color is. I mean, you tell Facebook everything, and that's totally ran and connected by the FBI. You tell them everything. Well, people have smartened up due to all the censorship, and now they won't tell anybody anything. But then they come out with these platforms, and they're like, hey, everybody, this platform is ran by your team, by people you trust. So come give us all your information again. Tell us how you really feel. And then you do, and then something happens, and then they forfeit that information to people who just want to come get you. And then what? How worth it was it? So I don't know. I don't trust it. I'm waiting to see for the next false flag, see how fast they go down. Because another thing that people don't realize is, although the platform itself may have the best intentions, it is still hosted by someone. They most likely do not own their own servers. It's very expensive to do that. And Amazon owns most of the online real estate. And so most of the time when you are running a website, it's actually somewhere down the line being hosted by Amazon. And so that's why, like, when what happened to Parler happened, they were like, you either start censoring your community or else we're going to shut you down. And Parler was like, we are not going to censor our community. And Amazon stepped in and shut them down. And then they forfeited all their data. That is very possible to happen to Getter. If they are not hosting themselves, which they're probably not, eventually if a false flag happens or something happens and they say that even an ounce of data from Getter caused this false flag, they will force Getter to provide all their data to the government. And anybody that wrote anything ill about the president, the White House, the Pentagon, their country, any kind of slant words towards, killing or something bad like that, you're going to get a visit from the government because you were on a platform where you thought you were able to speak freely. But the internet is a very complex thing. I don't fully understand it at all. All I know is you can't trust it. So I don't know. I don't participate on Getter. And you're the first person to tell me to get on Getter, really. And even if I was on Getter, it'd probably be like Gab. I'm on Gab, and all I really do is just be like, hey, we're going live. I don't really say anything else. Most of the stuff we talk about is on Discord, and I'm trying to put it on Telegram as well as a backup for if Discord goes down. But it's difficult because Telegram sucks in comparison to Discord. It sucks to even try and post an update. I got like 16 different groups I'm a part of or whatever, or I get news from, and all the channels are the same color. Everything's the same color. You get lost in the mix. Nothing stands out. There's not really any cool features or anything on Telegram in comparison to Discord. So I don't know. It's really hard for me to use anything for actual networking outside of Discord. Discord's awesome, or at least our Discord is awesome. Yeah, that's my thoughts on that. We'll see. Maybe I'll get on Getter, but if I do it, like I said, it's going to be a whole bunch of, we're going live. We're live right now. It'll be mostly that. Keeps us safe. Thank you so much, Lori, for your donation and your support, and thank you for joining the membership program, and welcome to the family. You're officially a hooligan. What's up, Shane? Thanks for being here. it's been almost 2 years since I've read Event 201. I'd have to read it again to see what the next step is. It's kind of bad because it's almost like reading a variant of the Bible, because like usually you look to, okay, not everybody, but some people look to the Bible to try and figure out what's going to happen next. They talk about the end times being when everything right is wrong and when everything wrong is right. You know that you are in the end of times. And so a lot of people are following that right now. But now when you start talking about Event 201, you kind of start taking attention away from the Bible and you start putting attention on a government document to be like, what's going to happen next? And so that's just my 2 cents. I just wanted to put out there really quick. But I'll have to look into Event 201 to see how far we've come on their plan. That's what she said. So just a moment, I'm going to check on this other live because in 3 minutes or so, Jen Balsacki is supposed to be going live. So we will see. What's up, Jesse? I've said so much stuff during this live already. We'll see if I still exist after this. All right, well, we're still sitting here waiting to see what's going to happen. The live we have on the screen, although it's a still image, is still live. And then Jen Balsacki is supposed to be, her live is about to start in 2-3 minutes. The timer is counting down on that live, so that should be going live as well. These are the people running the country. Like, blows my mind. Blows my mind. These people can't even show up for their own stuff. Just kills me. No, Jen Balsacki's not late yet. Her schedule, everything was pushed back. Everything was supposed to start at like 1:30 today. And then it all got pushed back. So she's actually supposed to start at 3:30 Eastern time, which is in 2 minutes. We'll see. Now I'm going to have to go through and update all these titles and stuff. It's rough. Honky Kong, she's circling back. She might as well go back to saying that because she doesn't provide any new information. She just changes her keywords. Like now she's just like, oh, that's a really great question, and then says nothing. Oh, here we go. Watch these guys speak at the same time and we're going to miss the press briefing. I mean, not that it matters, but unreal.
Last night in Kabul,
fuck you, Walter.
The United States ended 20 years of war in Afghanistan, the longest war in American history. We completed one of the biggest airlifts in history, with more than 120,000 people evacuated to safety. That number is more than double what most experts thought were possible. No nation has ever done anything like it in all of history. Only the United States had the capacity and the will and the ability to do it, and we did it today. The extraordinary success of this mission was due to the incredible skill, bravery, and selfless courage of the United States military and our diplomats and intelligence professionals. For weeks, they risked their lives to get American citizens, Afghans who helped us, citizens of our allies and partners and others on board planes and out of the country. And they did it facing a crush of enormous crowds seeking to leave the country. And they did it knowing ISIS-K terrorists, sworn enemies of the Taliban, were lurking in the midst of those crowds. And still, the women and men of the United States military, our diplomatic corps, and intelligence professionals did their job and did it well, risking their lives, not for professional gains, but to serve others, not in a mission of war, but in a mission of mercy. 20 service members were wounded in the service of this mission. 13 heroes gave their lives. I was just at Dover Air Force Base for the dignified transfer. We owe them and their families a debt of gratitude we can never repay, but we should never, ever, ever forget. In April, I made a decision to end this war. As part of that decision, we set the date of August 31st for American troops to withdraw. The assumption was that more than 300,000 Afghan national security forces that we had trained over the past 2 decades and equipped would be a strong adversary in their civil wars with the Taliban. That assumption that the Afghan government would be able to hold on for a period of time beyond military drawdown turned out not to be accurate. But I still instructed our national security team to prepare for every eventuality, even that one. And that's what we did. So we were ready when the Afghan security forces, after 2 decades of fighting for their country and losing thousands of their own, did not hold on as long as anyone expected. We were ready when they and the people of Afghanistan watched their own government collapse and their president flee amid the corruption and malfeasance, handing over the country to their enemy, the Taliban, and significantly increasing the risk to U.S. personnel and our allies. As a result, to safely extract American citizens before August 31st, as well as embassy personnel, allies and partners, and those Afghans who had worked with us and fought alongside of us for 20 years, I had authorized 6,000 troops, American troops, to Kabul to help secure the airport. As General McKenzie said, this is the way the mission was designed. It was designed to operate under severe stress and attack, and that's what it did. Since March, we reached out 19 times to Americans in Afghanistan with multiple warnings and offers to help them leave Afghanistan, all the way back as far as March. After we started the evacuation 17 days ago, we did initial outreach and analysis and identified around 5,000 Americans who had decided earlier to stay in Afghanistan, but now wanted to leave. Our Operation Allied Rescue ended up getting more than 5,500 Americans out. We got out thousands of citizens and diplomats from those countries that went into Afghanistan with us to get bin Laden. We got out locally employed staff of the United States Embassy and their families, totaling roughly 2,500 people. We got thousands of Afghan translators and interpreters and others who supported the United States out as well. Now we believe that about 100 to 200 Americans remain in Afghanistan with some intention to leave. Most of those who remain are dual citizens, long-time residents who had early decided to stay because of their family roots in Afghanistan. The bottom line, 90% of Americans in Afghanistan who wanted to leave were able to leave. And for those remaining Americans, there is no deadline. We remain committed to get them out if they want to come out. Secretary of State Blinken is leading the continued diplomatic efforts to ensure safe passage for any American, Afghan partner, or foreign national who wants to leave Afghanistan. In fact, just yesterday, the United Nations Security Council passed a resolution that sent a clear message about what the international community expects the Taliban to deliver on moving forward, notably freedom of travel, freedom to leave. And together, we are joined by over 100 countries that are determined to make sure the Taliban upholds those commitments. It will include ongoing efforts in Afghanistan to reopen the airport, as well as overland routes, allowing for continued departure to those who want to leave, and deliver humanitarian assistance to the people of Afghanistan. The Taliban has made public commitments broadcast on television and radio across Afghanistan on safe passage for anyone wanting to leave, including those who worked alongside Americans. We don't take them by their word alone, but by their actions. And we have leverage to make sure those commitments are met. Let me be clear. Leaving August the 31st is not due to an arbitrary deadline. It was designed to save American lives. My predecessor, the former president, signed an agreement with the Taliban to remove U.S. troops by May the 1st, just months after I was inaugurated. It included no requirement that the Taliban work out a cooperative government arrangement with the Afghan government. But it did authorize the release of 5,000 prisoners last year, including some of the Taliban's top war commanders, among those who just took control of Afghanistan. By the time I came to office, the Taliban was in its strongest military position since 2001, controlling or contesting nearly half of the country. The previous administration's agreement said that if we stuck to the May 1st deadline that they had signed on to leave by, the Taliban wouldn't attack any American forces. But if we stayed, all bets were off. So we were left with a simple decision. Either follow through on the commitment made by the last administration and leave Afghanistan, or say we weren't leaving and commit another tens of thousands more troops going back to war. That was the choice, the real choice, between leaving or escalating. I was not going to extend this forever war, and I was not extending a forever exit. The decision to end the military airlift operations at Kabul airport was based on the unanimous recommendation of my civilian and military advisors, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and all the service chiefs, and the commanders in the field. Their recommendation was that the safest way to secure the passage of the remaining Americans and others out of the country was not to continue with 6,000 troops on the ground in harm's way in Kabul, but rather to get them out through non-military means. In the 17 days that we operated in Kabul, after the Taliban seized power, we engaged in an around-the-clock effort to provide every American the opportunity to leave. Our State Department was working 24/7, contacting and talking, and in some cases walking Americans into the airport. Again, more than 5,500 Americans were airlifted out. And for those who remain, we will make arrangements to get them out if they so choose. As for the Afghans, we and our partners have airlifted 100,000 of them. No country in history has done more to airlift out the residents of another country than we have done. We will continue to work to help more people leave the country who are at risk. We're far from done. For now, I urge all Americans to join me in grateful prayer for our troops and diplomats and intelligence officers who carried out this mission of mercy in Kabul and at tremendous risk with such unparalleled results. An airlift that evacuated tens of thousands, to a network of volunteers and veterans who helped identify those needing evacuation, guide them to the airport, and provided them for their support along the way. We're going to continue to need their help. We need your help, and I'm looking forward to meeting with you. And to everyone who is now offering or who will offer to welcome Afghan allies to their homes around the world, including in America, we thank you. I take responsibility for the decision. Now some
You
say
just blame Trump, you liar.
started mass evacuation sooner. And couldn't this have been done in a more orderly manner? I respectfully disagree. Imagine if we'd begun evacuations in June or July, bringing in thousands of American troops and evacuating more than 120,000 people in the middle of a civil war. There still would have been a rush to the airport, a breakdown in confidence and control of the government, and it still would have been very difficult and dangerous mission. The bottom line is there is no evacuation from the end of a war that you can run without the kinds of complexities, challenges, and threats we faced. None. There are those who would say we should have stayed indefinitely for years on end. They ask, why don't we just keep doing what we were doing? Why do we have to change anything? The fact is, everything had changed. My predecessor had made a deal with the Taliban.
You already said that part.
We faced a deadline, May 1. The Taliban onslaught was coming. We faced one of two choices: follow the agreement of the previous administration and extend to have more time for people to get out, or send in thousands of more troops and escalate the war. To those asking for a third decade of war in Afghanistan, I ask, what is the vital national interest? In my view, we only have one: to make sure Afghanistan can never be used again to launch an attack on our homeland.
Then why did you give them weapons, you moron?
In the first place, because we were attacked by Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda on September 11th, 2001. And they were based in Afghanistan. We delivered justice to bin Laden on May 2nd, 2011, over a decade ago. Al-Qaeda was decimated. I respectfully suggest you ask yourself this question. If we'd been attacked on September 11, 2001, from Yemen instead of Afghanistan, would we have ever gone to war in Afghanistan? Even though the Taliban controlled Afghanistan in the year 2001? I believe the honest answer is no. That's because we had no vital interest in Afghanistan other than to prevent an attack on America's homeland and our friends. And that's true today. We succeeded in what we set out to do in Afghanistan over a decade ago. Then we stayed for another decade. It was time to end this war. This is a new world. The terror threat has metastasized across the world, well beyond Afghanistan. We face threats from al-Shabaab in Somalia, al-Qaeda affiliates in Syria and the Arabian Peninsula, and ISIS attempting to create a caliphate in Syria and Iraq and establishing affiliates across Africa and Asia. The fundamental obligation of a president, in my opinion, is to defend and protect America. Not against threats of 2001, but against the threats of 2021 and tomorrow. That is the guiding principle behind my decisions about Afghanistan. I simply do not believe that the safety and security of America is enhanced by continuing to deploy thousands of American troops and spending billions of dollars a year in Afghanistan. But I also know that the threat from terrorism continues in its pernicious and evil nature. But it's changed, expanded to other countries. Our strategy has to change too. We will maintain the fight against terrorism in Afghanistan and other countries. We just don't need to fight a ground war to do it. We have what's called over-the-horizon capabilities, which means we can strike terrorists and targets without American boots on the ground or very few if needed. We've shown that capacity just in the last week. We struck ISIS-K remotely, days after they murdered 13 of our service members and dozens of innocent Afghans. And to ISIS-K, we are not done with you yet. As Commander-in-Chief, I firmly believe the best path to guard our safety and our security lies in a tough, unforgiving, targeted, precise strategy that goes after terror where it is today, not where it was 2 decades ago. That's what's in our national interest. And here's a critical thing to understand. The world is changing. We're engaged in a serious competition with China. We're dealing with the challenges on multiple fronts with Russia. We're confronted with cyber attacks and nuclear proliferation. We have to shore up America's competitiveness to meet these new challenges in the competition for the 21st century. And we can do both. Fight terrorism and take on new threats that are here now and will continue to be here in the future. And there's nothing China or Russia would rather have, would want more in this competition in the United States to be bogged down another decade in Afghanistan. As we turn the page on the foreign policy that has guided our nation the last 2 decades, we've got to learn from our mistakes. To me, there are 2 that are paramount. First, we must set missions with clear, achievable goals, not ones we'll never reach. And second, we must stay clearly focused on the fundamental national security interest of the United States of America. This decision about Afghanistan is not just about Afghanistan. It's
We know.
ending an era of major military operations to remake other countries. We saw a mission of counterterrorism in Afghanistan, getting the terrorists and stopping attacks, morph into a counterinsurgency, nation building, trying to create a democratic, cohesive, and united Afghanistan, something that has never been done over many centuries of Afghan's history. Moving on from that mindset, and those kind of large-scale troop deployments will make us stronger and more effective and safer at home. And for anyone who gets the wrong idea, let me say clearly, to those who wish America harm, to those who engage in terrorism against us or our allies, know this: the United States will never rest. We will not forgive. We will not forget. We will hunt you down to the ends of the earth, and you will pay the ultimate price. And let me be clear. We'll continue to support the Afghan people through diplomacy, international influence, and humanitarian aid. We'll continue to push for regional diplomacy engagement to prevent violence and instability. We'll continue to speak out for the basic rights of the Afghan people, especially women and girls, as we speak out for women and girls all around the globe.
You lower your goddamn voice.
And I've been clear that human rights will be the center of our foreign policy. But the way to do that is not through endless military deployments, but through diplomacy, economic tools, and rallying the rest of the world for support. My fellow Americans, the war in Afghanistan is now over. I'm the 4th president who has faced the issue of whether and when to end this war. When I was running for president, I made a commitment to the American people that I would end this war. Today, I've honored that commitment. It was time to be honest with the American people again. We no longer had a clear purpose in an open-ended mission in Afghanistan. After 20 years of war in Afghanistan, I refuse to send another generation of America's sons and daughters to fight a war that should have ended long ago. After more than $2 trillion spent in Afghanistan, a cost that researchers at Brown University estimated would be over $300 million a day for 20 years in Afghanistan, for 2 decades. Yes, the American people should hear this. $300 million a day for 2 decades. If you take the number of 1 trillion, as many say, that's still $150 million a day for 2 decades.
Don't start doing math, Walter. We know that's not your strong point.
As a consequence in terms of opportunities, I refuse to continue a war that was no longer in the service of the vital national interest of our people. And most of all, after 800,000 Americans serving in Afghanistan, I've traveled that whole country, brave and honorable service. After 20,744 American servicemen and women injured, and the loss of 2,461 American personnel, including 13 lives lost just this week, I refuse to open another decade of warfare in Afghanistan.
Where's it going to be this time?
We've been a nation too long at war. If you're 20 years old today, you've never known an America at peace. So when I hear that we could have, should have, continued the so-called low-grade effort in Afghanistan at low risk to our service members, at low cost, I don't think enough people understand how much we've asked of the 1% of this country who put that uniform on, willing to put their lives on the line in defense of our nation. Maybe it's because my deceased son, Bo, served in Iraq for a full year. Before that, well, maybe it's because of what I've seen over the years as senator, vice president, and president traveling these countries. A lot of our veterans and their families have gone through hell. Deployment after deployment, months and years away from their families. Missed birthdays, anniversaries, empty chairs at holidays, financial struggles, divorces, loss of limbs, traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress. We see it in the struggles many have when they come home. We see it in the strain on their families and caregivers. We see it in the strain on their families when they're not there. We see it in the grief borne by their survivors.
His injections are wearing off. He's slowing down, squinting harder.
They will carry with them their whole lives. Most tragically, we see in the shocking and stunning statistic that should give pause to anyone who thinks war can ever be low grade, low risk, or low cost. 18 veterans on average who die by suicide every single day in America. Not in a far-off place, but right here in America. There's nothing low grade or low risk or low cost about any war. It's time to end the war in Afghanistan. As we close 20 years of war and strife and pain and sacrifice, it's time to look to the future. Not the past, to a future that's safer, to a future that's more secure, to a future that honors those who served and all those who gave what President Lincoln called their last full measure of devotion. I give you my word with all of my heart. I believe this is the right decision, a wise decision, and the best decision for America. Thank you. Thank you, and may God bless you all, and may God protect our troops.
No questions? That's right, don't forget your muzzle. What a fucking idiot. So we're going to just go right into Jen Balsacki. Listen to the nonsense she's going to, redistribute. That's the worst potato I've ever seen. Old man Walter Biden Could you imagine reading a teleprompter and having to say, like, this is the wisest decision ever because somebody else wrote that on the teleprompter? I don't understand how this person is, like, still exists. Like, I don't understand. Like, obviously we're powerless. I don't know anybody that supports this idiot. I've only seen 2 people this whole time who have actually been like, yeah, I support this retard. Like, we're obviously powerless, because otherwise I don't think he'd still be giving us terrible speeches like that. Just good Lord. All right, so let me see what's going on with this next live. It should be starting like any minute. I'm sure they were only holding off to let this idiot stammer on. We might even go back and look at him when he came out versus him right before he left, because he came out like he was on an adrenaline shot. He looked like he had fight or flight in his eyes, and then he left looking like it was nap time. Good Lord. Just give me a moment. And we'll also try and get some shout outs in if Jen Balseki's not already on the screen. I have a list here that generates every time you guys donate and stuff. So I want to make sure I shout you guys out because I really appreciate you. All right, so it looks like it'll be starting any moment now. I got to flip the screen and get everything set up, so just a moment. All right, well, let's get these shout outs in before we move forward. Thank you so much, Fiona and Alan, for your donations and your support. I really appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. What I'd like to see, and I've seen that there's a couple businesses that have already started doing this. I would like to see some anti-mandate businesses start enforcing their rights. I know there's a couple businesses that have been like, basically, if you got the jab, you can't eat here. If you wear a muzzle, you can't come here. Only the unmuzzled and unjabbed are able to eat here. And I don't want to see that. I'd like to see all is welcome. But the more people that participate in the nonsense, the worse it's going to get. The more of these mandates that are going to happen. The more authority you give the government, the more they will keep. They won't give it back. They're not going to give us back our rights. Whatever they take, they intend on keeping it. I know a lot of people want to take a stand and stuff, and you can't even organize. You organize, and then all of a sudden, you know, you're a terrorist group or whatever. Like, look at the Proud Boys. Everybody thinks they're a bunch of racist terrorists, and their leader was an informant for the FBI, and he's not white. I don't want to say what he is because I don't know exactly, and I don't want to get it wrong, but I know he's not white. And so it's like, look at how the press, you know, makes everything look. You know, I've been telling my friends for like 2 years, like, if they were to do something to me, they're going to stick my face on the news and they're going to say terrible things about me. And people are going to see my tattoos and my face piercing, especially if they use an old photo where I have dreadlocks. And whatever they say, people are going to believe it. They're just going to believe it. If they haven't been a hooligan, if they haven't been a part of all this, they're going to see that. They're going to see my face on the news and whatever title they stick underneath it. And they're going to go, oh yeah, he deserved it. And that's what'll happen. That can happen to any of us. Which is why when I do a march, I don't organize. I just go. And whoever catches me while I'm out walking around, you're welcome to join. As long as you love America and you love the Constitution, you're welcome to join. And that's just all there is to it. And I've been saying that for almost a year. People need to stop organizing into gangs. If you do hold an event, if you do go get a permit to organize as Americans. Stop calling yourselves, you know, one thing or another. Just organize as Americans, because the day they put that on the news, oh, we have a bunch of terrorist Americans here, that is not going to make sense. And that's going to be a big eye-opener to a lot of people. To a lot of people who are so focused on groups and gangs, that'll be a big eye-opener. When they can't call you something because all you are is just an American that loves their country, how will they label you? They will not be able to. And it's coming. That stuff is coming. Like, we are almost at the breaking point. You can't go anywhere without having something politically put out there. Whether you're at the school, you're at a restaurant, you're walking through Walmart, you're just overhearing people's conversation. Politics is everywhere because they're putting it everywhere. People need to make decisions, and they need to really think hard about how things are going to be moving forward. Just as I have to be careful with what I say on the live, we've all come to a point where we've had to be careful for what we say and all that, even around family members. People, I can't tell you how many times I've heard people be like, oh, so-and-so's coming over and we can't talk about this because they get upset. Why? Because they're on the wrong side? I wish I could really tell you guys. There's been family members and friends and lots of people. If you're not feeling the way that I feel, you are not welcome in my house. You cannot come around me or anyone that hangs around me. I don't want anything bad to happen to you. I want you to live long enough to realize how dumb you are for being on the wrong side. And that's all there is to it. And it's not me versus them. It's American beliefs versus anti-American beliefs. And that's just all there is to it. I've been the one to create segregation in my family and friends because I'm not going to let you come over and call names and talk trash and provide misinformation that you can't back up, because that's all it is. People say what they think, and then you say what you believe that you have proof for, that you've seen happen live, and they get mad. And you say, well, where's your proof? Show me your documents. Show me your live footage. Show me your boots on the ground. And they can't. And so they get mad, and then they want to tell you you're a racist. You're a white nationalist. You have misinformation. You're lying. And that's all they can say is call you names, because they don't have nothing. They have nothing. They can't provide anything because it's not true. From top to bottom. From wearing a muzzle to getting a jab to whether or not schools are indoctrinating our kids for how old man Walter got where he is today. All of that stuff does not make sense. It doesn't make sense. They don't have proof, and they get mad and they call names like we're all in elementary school. And I'm not scared to straighten somebody out. So it's a lot easier for me to just cut them out of my life, because we got serious stuff that's happening around us all the time. You have to worry about your kids. You have to worry about your own safety. I mean, I can't tell you, like, my whole house is surveillanced. Big time. Every room has cameras and audio recordings, and they all have memory cards. So even if they cut my internet, I mean, you'd have to shut my power off and find every camera and pull the memory card from every single one in order to stop or lie about what I do. Most of the time, I only leave the house like twice a week. I'm here all the time. It would be very hard to try and associate me with anything bad. All I do is provide the truth, eat every once in a while, shower as often as I can. Sometimes I use the bathroom, and then I sleep for 4 hours. That's it. Because that's the only way I feel safe. Because of all the crap happening around us. And because of how much I'm live, you never know when they're going to come knock on my door. They did it to Eddie Block. They did it to a lot of live streamers. And it's like, we're living in a very scary situation. And you got idiots out here that just don't realize what's going on. You know, they got their cousins or their uncle or, granddad that acts like Walter, and they tell them some stuff, and then they go out there and they spread that crap with their friends, and then them and 20 other people they've told all believe this nonsense. And then as soon as you tell them to prove it, show me some proof. I want to know how you know that. I want to be on your side. So you got to give me something so I can be on your side. And then they turn around and you're a racist. You're a liar. You're spreading misinformation. You're a terrorist. Nah. You can't call names at this point. You either can back it up or you should stop spreading that information. And that's all there is to it. So, I don't know. I obviously feel very strong about all of this. But I know a lot of you do too. And that's why I keep encouraging people, join the Discord, be a part of the conversation, get some of these articles, get these videos, get this live footage that we all have, and become leaders in your own community. Because I hate to think about it, but if something was to happen to me, would it all be over for a lot of hooligans? Would it just be like, oh, let's find someone else? That's a scary thought. And so I want everyone to be on the same page. I want all of us to be able to find this information, know where to look, know how to provide it, and know how to spread the truth, because it's powerful. It's kind of like a pyramid deal. If they take out the top, the whole pyramid falls. But that's not what this is. We are all united. We're all in this together. And that's why we all need to be on the same page. They can't take us all out. They can't erase all of us. We all have to be in this together. And most of us are. But that's why I do this every single day. Because to me, it's important. To a lot of you, it is important. To some people, they just come here and they want to troll and sound really stupid and point fingers and call names and all this stuff. And I'm sure they feel like trash at the end of the day. I'm sure they're totally alone at the end of the day. I'm not alone. I got almost 100,000 hooligans with me. I got God with me. I got people with me in real life that are seeing what's happening. That at first they would go silent if I walked in the room. They'd be like, oh, here's, like I'm Alex Jones or something. They would be like, oh, here's this guy talking all this stuff. And now they're like, hey, what's up? What's going on with the news? What's going on? I know you know. Because people are starting to see what's happening. Which is why if we can get our hands on this interview with this mother of a fallen soldier, we're going to spread that around too. Because it obviously is something important if Facebook and Instagram is banning her and blackballing her. So we need to get that out there. And sharing a link should not get your account banned if that's something you're worried about. The algorithm doesn't go as far as watching what you provide as far as a link unless that link has already been banned. And there's no way that it has yet because it's new. I mean, I don't even know if it's happened yet. Sometime today that will come out and we will share that everywhere. It's going to be an eye-opener for a lot of people who still don't get what's going on yet. So we will get our hands on that and definitely spread that around. It looks like I got some more shout-outs to do. I got to check on these other chats. Jen Balsaki's late. Really late. If anybody's got the availability, look around and make sure this hasn't been canceled. Because I don't want to just sit here and go on and on and on if we don't have nothing happening. But let me take care of this stuff really quick. Let's see, where were we? Thank you so much, 44 Magnum, Proud Elbow, and Sarah. Thank you guys so much for your donations and your support. And thank you so much, the Tex Vet, for joining the membership program. And welcome to the family. You're officially a hooligan. Thank you so much, RV Sarah. I really appreciate your donation and your support. Thank you all for being here. So let me check on these other chats. Make sure I didn't miss anyone. And I'll have to go back to the White House schedule and see if they've made any changes. For some reason, that's like the last place to be updated. A lot of times you can get more updated information through Twitter than you can the whitehouse.gov. It's special like that. So let me just check on this really quick. Yeah, Mama Bear, that is rough. Getting tested and waiting on your results is like a gamble. It's like buying a scratch off at the gas station. It depends if they need more numbers for the narrative or not. It's trash. That stuff is trash. And being tested is actually harmful to your health. I think we have the documents in the Discord right now, but you're allowed to examine your test before you take it. And if it's, I can't remember if it's EO or OE, if that's on there, it's hazardous to your health. It actually causes cancer and a bunch of other stuff. Again, it's something you can totally Google, look up, find the documents by the people who have, researched it and stuff. It's like ethylene oxide or something like that. I might have said the keyword. Now we're all going to get taken down. Yeah, even the test is not good for you. Jose, yes, I do plan on covering any events going on for 9/11. I don't know if we're supposed to or not, considering they're saying anyone that acknowledges 9/11 is a threat to national security. That's ridiculous, considering they've been like, we'll never forget, or whatever the slogan's been for 20 years. Our government's so messed up. But yeah, I do plan on covering. I assume that's going to be a busy day, one way or another, between what the government keeps saying they're expecting and the facts that people who have, fallen loved ones from that day, who, have a vigil or some sort of celebration of life. I do plan on covering that. All right, as far as I can tell, this is still a go. I don't remember when Old Man Walter walked off stage. She's almost an hour late. She's 43 minutes late at this time, but I'm pretty sure she wasn't able to start because Old Man Walter was still going on and on, repeating himself and blaming Trump. Yeah, XRP, it was changed at 3:30. It's now 4:13 Eastern time. But it seems like they'll be going live pretty soon. Yeah, Shadow Kane, it is important to unplug. It's just, it gets harder and harder every day. It really does. You can't go anywhere with a muzzle sign on the building. You can't go anywhere where people aren't asking you if you've already got the jab or not. You can't even pick up your kids from school without wondering what's going on. It is getting harder and harder to unplug every day. I play video games at night, like really late at night, when I can't go to sleep and stuff. It does take my mind off of it. I can't even watch movies. Watching movies and TV shows, I spend the whole time going, why isn't anyone wearing a muzzle? Why are they not 6 feet apart? How come nobody's yelling at them? Where's their mandates? Where's their restrictions? And that's the first thing I think of when I watch movies or TV shows that are relative to real life. I can't even do it. It's been like a year since I've seen TV or anything. I just can't. I have to watch cartoons and stuff. I have to watch stuff that's not totally relevant to this time. Like I watch a lot of medieval stuff like The Witcher and stuff like that, because then my subconscious can say, oh, this is prior to mandates and stuff like that. It is important to unplug. Otherwise, you will get burnt out. And you can tell when people are getting burned out when they're fighting with everyone. When it happens in the Discord a lot. I don't want to say a lot, but sometimes it happens. You'll see someone who's been there the whole time, over long periods, a few months or so, and everything's, everyone's always gotten along. And then all of a sudden this person is fighting with everyone, contradicting everyone, trying to prove everyone wrong. That's when you can tell that someone's about to unravel. they're about to have a mental breakdown. I've probably had 4 mental breakdowns since I've been live streaming. It's not good, but it comes from getting burnt out. You got to try to unplug. You can't spend all day, every day doing this. It will just make you go crazy. And then you will break down. It will be hard to get out of bed. It'll be hard to eat. It'll be hard to stay awake. And you just want to run away from life, really, because you can't get away from this stuff. So it is important that every day you find a way to escape all of this. It is important for your own mental health, and it keeps you strong. It keeps you with it. Dazed and Confused, I am not editing the title because the beginning of this did start with Old Man Walter, and most people don't even watch a whole live after it's not live. They'll watch like 10 minutes of it and leave. But I do need to edit it on Odyssey, so thanks for reminding me.
An update on our ongoing efforts on Hurricane Ida. The President and his Homeland Security team are closely monitoring the impacts of Hurricane Ida as damage assessments continue. He has made clear that the state, tribal, and local officials who have requests for anything have our full support, and we are, of course, in close contact. Today, the FEMA administrator and the American Red Cross director are in Louisiana to meet with the governor and survey the damage from Hurricane Ida. Administrator Criswell will travel to Mississippi tomorrow to meet with state officials. And as Ida continues to move to the northeast, we expect heavy rain to continue. There's life-threatening flash flooding that remains a threat in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, D.C., and elsewhere. In the Gulf Coast, search and rescue efforts are underway. 12 urban search and rescue teams are currently operational in Louisiana to support state and local efforts. The Coast Guard has been doing overhead flights, including in Grand Isle, to search for anyone in need of assistance. So far, urban search and rescue teams have assisted over hundreds of survivors, and their work continues. We're also in regular contact, which is a huge priority for people in the region, with private electricity companies to ensure they have the resources they need as they work to restore power in Louisiana and Mississippi, where more than 1.1 million customers remain without electricity. We've seen some people in Mississippi get electricity back, and we're hopeful we'll see continued improvements. There are more than 25,000 linemen from 32 states and D.C. in the region racing to restore power, and FEMA has staged nearly 250 generators in the region to support impacted areas. We're going to get more generators to the area to get more power to the emergency services that need it the most. We also want to make sure that individuals in the impacted areas of Louisiana know they can apply for federal assistance. We would encourage anyone in need of assistance to visit disasterassistance.gov or call 1-800-621-FEMA. As of this morning, 48 shelters are open in affected areas throughout the Gulf Coast. FEMA has staged more than 4.4 million meals, 3.2 million liters of water, and more than 124,000 tarps in the region. And additional ambulance crews have been transported to Louisiana and Mississippi. The Department of Transportation also issued a regional emergency declaration for states including Alabama, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Texas, providing flexibility for transporting fuel as well as essential items like food, water, and power restoration equipment to support emergency relief efforts. And today we have 2 additional actions to announce to increase the availability of gasoline and ease price pressures. First, the department will extend and amend an emergency declaration that offers temporary flexibility to how many hours a truck driver can drive. This applies nationally to goods that support the COVID-19 response and will now include gasoline and other types of fuel, building materials, medical supplies, and food. Because the hurricane is hitting a region that is a key center of the nation's oil production and refining infrastructure, this waiver should help reduce the risk of gasoline shortages or price increases stemming from the hurricane. DOT's top priority remains safety, and this waiver is accompanied by additional safety-related reporting requirements to allow the department to monitor driver working hours. And second, the EPA has approved emergency fuel waivers for Louisiana and Mississippi, effective immediately, which will expand the supply of gasoline that can be sold in these 2 states and increase availability at this critical time. We are continuing to assess and will continue to provide you all updates. Why don't you kick it off, Josh? Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks, Jen. 2 subjects. First, on Afghanistan. The president said that any additional evacuations will go through diplomatic channels and that the United States has leverage over the Taliban. Can you tell us what those channels look like and what kind of leverage the United States has?
Absolutely. Well, first I would say I would point you to the remarks that the Secretary of State provided last night, but let me give you some highlights of that. We have enormous leverage over the Taliban, including access to the global marketplace. That's not a small, it's not a small piece of leverage. And in order to gain access to the global marketplace, we're going to be watching closely, as will the global community. I would note that yesterday the UN Security Council also passed a resolution that made clear to what the expectation is in terms of safe travel and evacuation, or departure, I should say, of individuals who want to leave Afghanistan. And nearly half of the countries in the world have also signed on to a statement making clear that is the expectation. That's the diplomatic side, and the other diplomatic components that our Secretary of State will be focused on include establishing a presence in Doha, which is already underway, which is a place where we will be able to operate from diplomatically. So we can have access with consular officers and diplomats who can engage with American citizens or others, our Afghan partners who want to depart. We're working to set that up now. The other piece is engagement with the Taliban, which will continue through our ongoing channels that we have with the Taliban on the diplomatic front. The other piece of this, which is very important, is operational, which is opening the airport and regional airports, and also ensuring that there is overland travel that is possible, which means being able to leave across borders. And the president touched on this in his statement. On the airport front, the more specific piece we're working on with the Qataris and the Turks, who are important partners here, is getting the civilian side of the airport up and operational again, so that we can use that not just for flights for people to depart, but also for humanitarian assistance, which we would work through programs like the World Food Program and others to distribute. So there are a number of channels. This is a priority the Secretary of State will be leading. They'll continue to provide updates, and we're hoping to make progress in the coming days.
And secondly, on the economy, you were asked the other day about the expiration of the extended unemployment benefits. We know that black unemployment in this country is above 8%. It's above 7% in New York, Nevada, Illinois, California. With the expiration, how do you ensure that people in those places still get the support and aid they need?
You're right, and Josh, it's vitally important to look at the fact that there are different circumstances in different states. So if we just take a step back and look at the national landscape on these benefits, in about half of all states, 24 governors have already made the decision to eliminate pandemic unemployment benefits. That's a choice they have made. In the remaining 26 states, unemployment levels vary pretty widely, from 3% to 7%, and half of these remaining states have unemployment rates that are already less than 5%. So there are differing needs in different states, and governors are making different decisions. What we're trying to do, and what we announced about 2 weeks ago, but obviously there was a lot of news going on, is our effort to put new tools in place to help states that choose to further extend pandemic unemployment benefits because of those needs, because they're states like those you have mentioned, or because they have higher rates of unemployment among African Americans or other groups that need additional assistance. So the Secretary of Treasury and the Secretary of Labor sent a letter to Chairman Wyden and Chairman Neal underscoring and affirming that states can use their allocations of the $350 billion of state and local fiscal relief funds included in the American Rescue Plan. That is funding that can be used. The Department of Labor has also made $90 million in career grants available to support comprehensive reemployment services for all Americans, and $146 million in reemployment services and eligibility assessments. And the Department of Labor also sent a letter just last week to states with information about how to leverage existing UI program infrastructure to deliver ongoing support to unemployed workers. We have also been engaging directly with states. We've been engaged now with about 30 states and counting to talk about what their specific needs are and how programs that are available can be eligible to people in their states.
Go ahead. First on Ida, thank you for all that information. You still tracking that he might go to the region at some point?
He certainly is open to that. What he does not want to do is interrupt rescue and recovery efforts, which, as many of you may or may not know who've covered hurricanes before, people leaving their homes and going to evacuation centers, that can increase in the days ahead. It isn't always just in the day after, and certainly there are ongoing efforts on the ground, as I just noted. So he's open to that. I don't have anything to announce at this point in time. Obviously, the President of the United States going to a region takes a lot of resources.
She couldn't talk any faster.
Is there any sense of if and how many Americans might have left today? Is there even a way to track that? for the U.S. government at this point?
Well, I will say we remain in touch through a range of means of communication: email, text, WhatsApp. That's something that we could certainly do from here, but also having a presence in Doha and diplomats in the region will enable that to happen locally or close by as well. I don't have an update for you on the numbers, but that's something the State Department would have the best assessment of.
We have asked and talked a little bit about the president's mood over the last few days, or his sense of all of this. A few of us observed he seemed angry at the beginning of the speech today. Who's he mad at?
I would say I'll give you a different assessment of what I saw, which is that he gave a forceful assessment, laid out a forceful case to the American people as to why it was time to wind down a 20-year war that has led to the loss of thousands of lives. And in his view, and I think he made a firm case of this, it's not in our national security interest to be on the ground anymore.
And on North Korea, the ongoing situation there, what's your current understanding of what they're doing with their nuclear program, and is there any renewed outreach to Kim Jong-un and his regime?
Well, we have left the door open and obviously reached out through our channels. I don't have an update for you in terms of any response to our offer. Our offer remains to meet anywhere, anytime, without preconditions. We're obviously aware of the reports we've seen over the last 24 hours, and we're closely coordinating with our allies and partners on developments and assessing closely. Go ahead, Jeff.
Jen, the president said in his remarks just a short time ago that in April, a deadline was set for August 31st. In fact, in his April remarks, he set a deadline for September 11th. So what changed over these last few months between the August 31st deadline and the September 11th initial deadline? Was that a deadline agreed to, a new time frame agreed to by the Taliban or suggested by them or by this administration, or what's the discrepancy there?
The military gave their assessment that they needed 120 days to wind down our presence in Afghanistan. So we abided by that.
But in the April speech, September 11th was the date. The August 31st date just arrived between April and now.
And he bases strategic decisions, tactical decisions, I should say, on the advice of the military and commanders on the ground and the timeline they needed to wind down our presence. And hence, here we are. It was his timeline, though. It was not the Taliban's timeline.
So he moved up the timeline to August 31st.
We needed 120 days, and we abided by the advice of the military. Jeff?
Jen, can you clarify whether the United States has an agreement with the Taliban to allow more Americans and other Afghans to leave the country?
Well, I will say, Jeff, that it is not just our expectation, but also the expectation of 100 countries around the world, the UN Security Council and others, that the Taliban will abide by what they committed to last Friday, which is the ability of people to leave Afghanistan should they choose to leave. There do need to be ongoing diplomatic negotiation, or discussions, I should say. That's a part of what the Secretary of State and his team will be leading. But I would note that the Taliban conveyed that on Friday, a leader of the Taliban. Again, more than half of the countries in the world have conveyed clearly what they expect, and the UN Security Council signed a resolution yesterday. So those are the diplomatic pieces that have moved forward, but this will be a top priority in the days ahead.
The president was critical today, and has been critical, of former President Trump's deal with the Taliban. Given that, I'm wondering if this administration or if this president gave any consideration to not holding on to former President Trump's special envoy to Afghanistan, who stayed on.
Look, I think the president wanted to be clear about what he was left when he took office, and he laid that out very clearly in his speech. But just to reiterate, since you gave me an opportunity, a couple of the points. When the president took office, there was a deadline that was just 3 months away that included, for May 1st, that included no requirement that the Taliban work out a cooperative governing agreement with the Afghan government. It did release 5,000 prisoners last year, including some of the Taliban's top war commanders. So the president was walking into that circumstance. He wanted to leave Afghanistan. It's a war he has long felt we needed to depart from. He's felt that was long overdue. But that was the circumstance he walked into, and frankly, there's a little bit of selective memory loss from some of the people who served in the last administration.
Oh yeah, what happened to the southern border and the policy on that?
Why hold on to that the Afghan envoy, the U.S. envoy to Afghanistan, who served under President Trump, why did President Biden hold on to him?
The president has made changes where he saw fit and has not made changes where he felt the person continued to be the right person for the job. That's not a political decision. Go ahead.
So we heard from the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, this morning on Good Morning America. He's mentioned that 98% of those on the ground there in Afghanistan and a small number who remain, they have reached out. They got out, as many people as they could. Is the administration essentially placing blame on Americans who could not get to the airport in time?
I think what the president stated clearly, and I know that Jake Sullivan has stated clearly, and our Secretary of State has stated clearly, is that our commitment remains. There is not an end to our commitment to American citizens who are in Afghanistan who want to leave. That's the same for any country in the world, for American citizens who want to leave and want to come home to the United States. It's also important for people to note and understand what the process has been and what we've undergone over the past few months, and that's what the president laid out, and we think it's still important for the American people here in the United States to understand that.
One on Al-Qaeda. So we heard from the president a few moments ago saying that one of the main reasons to go into this war was to get Al-Qaeda. We have heard that Osama bin Laden's security chief has reportedly returned to Afghanistan and has been seen in public. Do you still believe, or does the administration believe, that Al-Qaeda is no longer a threat to America? And given the ISIS attacks that we've seen in the last week, how confident is the administration that Afghanistan isn't already a safe haven for terrorists?
Well, I think first there is a very big difference between terrorists' ability to attack U.S. troops in Kabul and to attack the homeland. And we do not assess that any terrorist group on the ground has the ability to attack the homeland in the United States. It is incumbent upon the president, the national security team, to prevent that from ever being the case. But there is a very big difference between those two.
I know that the military obviously recommended to the president, or at least you said they recommended to the president that it would be best to leave, keep that August 31st deadline. But the president himself, in his interview with ABC News, said that if there's American citizens left, quote, we're going to stay until we get them all out. I think the president's explained his rationale for leaving 100 plus Americans behind. But can you talk about why he allowed his credibility on this issue to sort of go out the door on making a flat promise and then not keeping it?
Well, first I would say that the president remains committed to getting every American citizen who wants to get out. That's an enduring commitment, one that will not change, and one we're going to focus on every single day. I would also note that over the course of the last 2 weeks, we have seen a terrorist attack that took the lives of 13 of our service members. And there was and part of our assessment always is going to be the risks, a risk assessment. So I think the question was, do you leave 6,000 service members as there are heightening threats, heightening risks every single day? Or do you work through a diplomatic process and efforts to ensure that we will have the ability to get these American citizens out? That's the assessment we made.
I mean, after that terror attack, you and he made clear that you weren't going to let the terrorists sort of dictate the timeline. And
we didn't, and we've evacuated tens of thousands of people since then.
I guess, was it a mistake for the president to have promised that we would remain until everybody left the country?
We are going to get every American citizen out. That has not changed.
One last one on, you mentioned the leverage that we might have and how access to the global marketplace was a big element of that. Can you kind of explain how the sanctions regime that's currently on the Taliban is going to apply to what is now the government of Afghanistan? Is there a chance for Afghanistan, the country, to access its reserves or sort of avoid those sanctions? Will the central bank be sanctioned? Are they going to have that ability as part of this sort of partnership that you've talked about?
Well, it's going to be based on what their behavior is. And I think the president clearly outlined that we're going to be watching, as the world will, what the Taliban does. That is certainly allowing American citizens to depart. It's certainly allowing Afghans and our partners to depart. It's also how they operate as it relates to treatment of women, to human rights. There's a range of factors at play here. So I don't have anything to predict for you. Obviously, There's a great deal of economic leverage. You referenced sanctions that are already in place that we have, that the global community has, and we'll have to assess how things happen over the course of the coming days, weeks, and months. Go ahead, Jackie.
One question on the dignified transfer, and then I want to get to Afghanistan. Some of the Gold Star families have criticized the president's conduct at the dignified transfer. There was a father of one Marine who said that the president appeared to be checking his watch every time a flag-draped transfer case came out of the plane. And a sister of another Marine said that it felt like a fake and scripted apology. Was the president looking at his watch, and does he have a message to those people who felt that they were offended?
Well, I would say his message to all of the family members who were there, those who were not even in attendance, is that he is grateful to their sons and daughters, the sacrifice they made to the country, that he knows firsthand what it's like to lose a child, and the fact that no one can tell you anything or say anything, or there's no words that are going to fill that hole that is left by that. He's not going to speak to, and I'm not going to speak to, the private conversations. Of course, they have the right to convey whatever they would like. But I will tell you, from spending a lot of time with him over the past couple of days, that he was deeply impacted by these family members who he met just 2 days ago, that he talks about them frequently in meetings, and the incredible service and sacrifice of their sons and daughters. That is not going to change their suffering, but I wanted to convey that still. Go ahead.
On the future aid to the Taliban that Jake Sullivan was talking about this morning.
Yeah.
He said when it comes to economic and development assistance with the relationship with the Taliban, it'll be about the Taliban's actions. Should we understand that to mean that economic and development assistance could translate to taxpayer money eventually going to the Taliban at some point? I know it's different from the humanitarian aid we've been talking about, the World Food Program and things like that, but these specific references that Sullivan made this morning.
Well, I would go back to kind of the earlier question on this. There's an enormous amount of money they have at in the Federal Reserve. I shouldn't say they. The government of Afghanistan has in the Federal Reserve, which they don't have access to right now. That's actually their money that's being held there. So that's one of the questions here. There are also sanctions that are in place on a number of leaders. Obviously, that prevents them from doing business in various parts of the world. I think that's really what Jake Sullivan was referring to. Go ahead.
To get back real quick to this issue of leverage, and I understand the U.S. plans to use that leverage for safe passage, but what specifically does the U.S. also want to see from the Taliban that they would use that leverage to get? You mentioned human rights or women's rights. Will the U.S. use its leverage if, for example, the Taliban doesn't allow girls to go to school or appears to be violating basic women's rights?
I think the president said that in his speech.
Okay. So things like access to the global marketplace would be contingent on girls being able to go to school, fundamental women's rights.
I'm not here to outline specific parameters for you, but what I can tell you broadly is that human rights, women's rights, are certainly what the United States and also the global community will be looking at.
And I know the president also said in his speech that assumption about how long the Afghan government would hold on, how long the military would be able to hold on. He acknowledged that that was a failed assumption. Who is responsible for that assumption? Is the president frustrated with his team at all for having made that false assumption?
We don't have the luxury of being frustrated. Our focus right now is on continuing to move forward on our diplomatic efforts. And continuing to do everything we can to get our Afghan partners and American citizens out, and to get Afghans who have fought by our side safely settled in the United States and third countries around the world. Go ahead.
Was that like a military assumption, though, or was that an assumption coming from the intelligence?
I don't think anyone assessed that they would collapse as quickly as they did. Anyone in this room, anyone in the region, anyone anywhere in the world. If you have anyone who did, I'd be surprised. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. The Afghan interpreter who helped rescue then Senator Joe Biden when he was stranded 13 years ago in Afghanistan is now in hiding. He told the Wall Street Journal, "Hello, Mr. President, save me and my family, don't forget me." What's your response to him, and why is he and other Afghan allies like him still in the country if the president believes, as he said today, that the mission was an extraordinary success?
Well, I would say first, our message to him is Thank you for fighting by our side for the last 20 years. Thank you for the role you played in helping a number of my favorite people out of a snowstorm, and for all of the work you did. And our commitment is enduring, not just to American citizens, but to our Afghan partners who have fought by our side. And our efforts and our focus right now is, as you heard General McKenzie say and others say over the last 24 hours, is to the diplomatic phase. We will get you out. We will honor your service, and we're committed to doing exactly that. Go ahead.
Thanks so much, Jen. Just to build on some of the things my colleagues were saying, President Biden said Americans who were given multiple chances to leave, dating back several months, but things, as you just noted, changed dramatically in the last few weeks. My question is, how many of those families said they wanted to stay in Afghanistan in the last few weeks, 2-3 weeks? And is it really fair to say, for the president to say, that they didn't leave when they had the chance? As you just mentioned, no one expected the collapse as happened, and the president himself, for months, was publicly saying that the Taliban would not be running things, and also that this exit would be safe and organized.
Well, I would say first that no one is placing blame here. I think it's important for people to understand, though, what
That's
the
the
process
point.
has been. And while there are between 100 and 200 American citizens who have not yet departed, we have also evacuated more than 5,500 American citizens and their family members and 115,000 other people from Afghanistan. So more than 120,000 people made their way to the airport or was able to evacuate from the country. It is also very understandable, and I want to be very clear here, the vast majority, if not everyone, though the State Department would have to speak to this, who is still there are dual citizens who have lived their entire lives in Afghanistan. This is about, I know this is hard for people to understand who grew up and live here. This is where they've lived. This is where their family members are. This is their communities. Maybe they own shops. Maybe they have 50 family members or 20 family members. This is not an easy decision to leave. We understand that. And what the president is saying is, if you decide to leave next week, if you decided 2 days ago and we couldn't get you out, we're going to get you out. And that's what his commitment is.
Can I ask about the immigration system and the refugee situation? The U.S. immigration system is already very overstretched. It's dysfunctional. I wanted to know, what steps is the administration taking to ensure that the tens of thousands of Afghan people who are being resettled here in the United States are not going to be caught up in red tape, and that they're going to get the resources they need?
Well, first, the president has asked the Secretary of Homeland Security to lead this effort, and there is a process that includes not just a thorough background check and vetting process, but as individuals come to the United States, some will end up going to military bases where they will have access to a range of resources, including vaccines. Those who are parolees will be required to get those vaccines, and what we are working to do is ensure we are leveraging and working with all of the incredible refugee resettlement organizations around the country who are eager and open to helping these Afghan refugees, also to veterans organizations who are eager and open to helping these Afghan refugees resettle in the United States, and work through as orderly a process using every lever of government, from the U.S. military, the Department of Homeland Security, to move this process as rapidly as we can. Go ahead.
He's not going to be invited into tomorrow's press briefing.
Why he thinks U.S. forces should not be in Afghanistan right now. But he was part of the Obama administration in 2014 when the then president decided he needed to send troops back to Iraq after several years to deal with the Islamic State threat. Does the president rule out needing to send troops back to Afghanistan to deal with a similar threat should it arise now?
I'm not going to look into a crystal ball in the future, but I think he's been pretty clear he doesn't have an intention to start another war and redeploy troops to Afghanistan. And what we've seen over the past week is that our over-the-horizon capacity can work and has worked. in going after ISIS targets and killing people who went after our troops. So that's where our resources and our focus is going to be on at this point in time.
I have another little bit of a crystal ball question.
Okay.
Ultimately, it will be up to the president to decide whether to establish diplomatic relations with a Taliban only or Taliban-led government. And while Secretary Blinken and others have set some of the parameters for that, does the president himself have a view about whether it would be appropriate to ever have a full U.S. diplomatic relationship with the Taliban?
Well, just like in any circumstance, it would depend on the conditions. But there's no rush to recognition coming from any aspect of this government or from the international community. Go ahead.
She said another crystal ball question.
Does the president envision any situation in which he might deploy a large amount of U.S. troops abroad under his presidency? Any sort of foreign conflict that would require the sort of mass troop deployment that he just said we are trying to move past?
I think one of the pieces that he talked about in the speech was how he views our engagement in the world, and I think this is probably why you're asking this question, and the horrible scenes and memories of the last few weeks. And as we think about how we embark on or how we use military force, these moments and these divisions of the last several weeks or months or years should stick in us, and stick in our minds. He made clear, first, we must set missions with clear, achievable goals, not ones we will never reach. And second, we must stay clearly focused on the fundamental national security interests of the United States. I mean, the president has not hesitated to use force when warranted. When he feels it's been warranted. He has done strikes in certain parts of the world. He has made very clear, and he said today, our work with you, we're not done with you, ISIS. That was a paraphrase, but he said it better. And that, I think, sends a clear message that he's going to go after terrorists. He's not going to hesitate to use the capacities and capabilities we have. But he also wants to be mindful about how we use thousands and large swaths of troops, and I think he was sending a clear message about how he views that.
Second question, the president has obviously been very consumed by this situation and by the hurricane, but as we roll into September, should we expect to start seeing him doing public events again for his economic agenda, particularly facing the month in Congress that awaits it?
Absolutely. I think you can expect the president to be communicating over the coming weeks on a range of issues that are front and center on the minds of the American people. Certainly he gave a speech today on Afghanistan, but certainly you can expect to hear from him more on his Build Back Better agenda, on COVID and his commitment to getting the virus under control, to speak to parents and those who have kids going back to school. There are a range of issues he's eager to communicate about. Absolutely. Go ahead.
Did the president watch the takeoff of the last flight from Afghanistan yesterday? And has he been in contact with, any of the service members who were on the last flight?
Well, he did. I know there's been some reporting out there on this, but I can confirm for you that the president learned of the last flight safely leaving Afghanistan when he was in the Oval Office, meeting with members of his national security team and some senior advisors. And a note was passed to his national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, who conveyed it to the president, the news to the president. Obviously, in those cases, for those of you who have watched these events closely, you have to wait until they're out of airspace. Hence, it was a little bit before you saw the announcement by the Pentagon. And he has conveyed repeatedly in meetings that I have at least been in to the military how grateful he is for their work, for the fact that they oversaw a historic airlift operation, one that evacuated more than 120,000 people in the middle of a civil war facing ISIS threats. He's conveyed his gratitude to them and to the work of his national security team repeatedly.
When does the president plan to sign the bill that was passed in the Senate today that provides temporary assistance to Americans returning from Afghanistan?
I'm sure as soon as possible, but I will have to check. Go ahead, Karen.
Thanks, Jen. Just to go back to the line of questions from Justin, you heard the president say today that he remains committed to getting those Americans out. You said that commitment remains. You said it's an enduring commitment. You talked about the risk assessment that's been underway over the last couple of days or weeks, but it was less than 2 weeks ago when the president told ABC yes when he was asked, are you committed to making sure troops stay until every American who wants to get out gets out? He said yes. So obviously situations have changed, the threat increased as you've said, but why should those Americans believe that this commitment is enduring when 13 days ago that commitment changed?
Because he's evacuated 5,500 American citizens and their family members and 120,000 total people over the last 2 weeks, nearly all of them since that time. Go ahead.
You've described the drone strikes as successful and that America still has over-the-horizon capability. It appears that several children were killed in one of the drone strikes. Can you say that it was still successful if that was the collateral damage? And how will the U.S. determine that it has the intelligence necessary to keep carrying out these drone strikes if civilians are going to be caught in the crossfire?
Well, first I would say we take civilian casualties and the possibility of civilian casualties incredibly seriously in our U.S. military, perhaps more than any other country in the world. There is an investigation, and I don't believe the military or CENTCOM has spoken to or confirmed what has been some reporting out there by news organizations. I will note that in CENTCOM's statement just 2 nights ago, they made clear that their assessment was that there was the vehicle that was the target also had explosives in it, and those explosives may have also led to an impact on the ground, but there's an investigation that's ongoing.
You're confident that in the 2 drone strikes the U.S. did, terrorists were killed in both of those strikes?
I believe that's the assessment that's been put out by CENTCOM. Go ahead, April.
Jim, Afghanistan and Ida. First, I want to start with Ida. When Katrina happened, then President George W. Bush put the Gulf Coast in a special category. And then President Obama, as you remember, you were here at that time, kept it in that category for a while to build it back up. Are we at that point now where some parts of the Gulf Coast, specifically New Orleans and that area, will be placed in another category to help rebuild yet again because of the devastation of Ida?
Well, April, I will say that we're only on a couple days into the storm. I know you've covered these, as you've referenced in the past, and we don't know how to assess yet all of the impacts. But what I think the people of the region and the Gulf Coast should look at to evaluate how committed the president is to this is all of the preemptive resources he put in place, all of those he sent to the region, and the number of resources he's continuing to deploy from the federal government. So I can't assess that at this point in time, but I can tell you that the president receives briefings about the hurricane every single day, sometimes more than once a day, and has been for several days, and he's committed to delivering on whatever the needs are to help the Gulf Coast recover.
Afghanistan, we talked to Greg Meeks, the chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and he said there will indeed be congressional hearings on this longest war in U.S. history from the beginning to this moment. What is the expectation of this administration when it comes to these hearings, and what are you willing to offer? Full transparency as it relates to how all of this happened beyond these speeches, but going into the weeds as to why, the hows, the who, what, when, where, and whys.
Well, I would say first we've already done several briefings with members, including in the classified setting, over the course of the last several weeks. So that speaks to our commitment to answering questions they have and being able to play our role in working with them on addressing the last 7 months. Now it's a 20-year war, so there's obviously a lot to dig into.
One more.
Yeah.
But following up on that, but would this administration be willing to sit before hearings? Some in this administration go before Congress and answer questions about their part in this war.
Again, I think we've clearly already been participating in Congress's asks, and we have already been briefing them. There haven't been specific requests made that I am aware of, and as they come, we'll speak to those.
Embassies in the area doing in Europe and Spain to support this effort to help get Americans out and just this evacuation and going and moving, shifting from the military operation to that of diplomacy?
Well, there's been a huge role that our nation's diplomats have been playing already to date. Obviously, there's been a Herculean effort by the U.S. military on the ground, but our diplomats, the consular officers, many of them who are on the ground, or those who are making tens of thousands of phone calls to identify Afghan applicants, members of the vulnerable population, American citizens, that work will continue. And that work will continue to help get American citizens and others who have fought by our side out of the country. Go ahead, Rachel.
Yeah, and the president said there's no deadline to get the remaining Americans who want to leave out of Afghanistan. But is there an acceptable timeline for the president for them coming home?
Well, I would say, Rachel, if someone decides in a year they want to leave Afghanistan, we're going to help them leave. If somebody is now ready to, we're going to help them leave as quickly as possible. So I think that's what he was conveying. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. I want to follow up on my question yesterday about deserving Afghans who did not get to leave. I think many people would understand that in the fog of war, despite the best efforts of the Marines and consular officers on the ground, mistakes are made. Marines could grab people or push people out of the gate because of a security threat, for example. But what I was talking about were these specific allegations from our sources on the ground and people who are assisting in these rescue operations who say that because of inconsistent policies, conflicting policies, and also a lack of coordination between the State Department and the Pentagon, and also competing interests from people in Washington with influence who are pulling strings, this creates a chaos in which vulnerable Afghans, including SIVs, were left behind, but individuals who may not have who is not an at-risk individual gets to leave. So is the administration willing to admit responsibility for this situation, and what would be your remedy?
I have no confirmation of what you've just outlined. What I will tell you is that 117,000, approximately, many of them Afghans, people who are not American citizens, were evacuated. That's more people than ever in any airlift in U.S. history. And what our U.S. Marines and what our military did on the ground was work to evacuate as many people as humanly possible, as quickly as possible. And many of those people were SIV applicants. Many of them were green card holders. Obviously, we've given you the number of American citizens, and many of them were just people from the vulnerable populations who we were able to get out. But we are committed to continuing to work in a diplomatic manner to get more people out who want to evacuate. And I would reiterate that we've worked already to get support for a statement from 100 countries around the world to pass a UN Security Council resolution and to make clear to the Taliban that that's our expectation. Yamiche, go ahead.
Follow up with the lily pad countries agreement. Can you give us an overall picture of the structure of these agreements with these countries? What are we paying or providing them in return? And how do we deal with local resentment? And this would also apply to people around American bases who may feel concerned about the threat of either COVID or a terrorist threat. How are we dealing with that?
Well, what we're doing is we're relying on all of you to convey clearly what our COVID protocols are, what our security protocols are, what our vetting protocols are, and we're also communicating very closely with governors and leaders in the region. Every country has different agreements. This is not a quid pro quo situation. This is where the international community recognized the need of the Afghan people, and nearly 24 countries have met this moment to have a place where individuals who are leaving Afghanistan can be, some before they go to third countries, some before they come to the United States. Jamish, go ahead. I think we got to move on, Patsy. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. My question, the president said that the U.S. should learn from its mistakes in the past. Does the president have any mistakes that he thinks he made during this withdrawal in Afghanistan that he wants to learn from?
Well, I would say I think the president's been pretty clear that we all had an expectation that the Afghan National Security Forces would fight harder in the end, would fight against the Taliban. We all had an expectation that President Ghani would not flee the country. Those were not expectations that were clearly met. So you can spend a lot of time looking in the rearview mirror. What our focus now on is moving forward on our diplomatic effort, settling Afghan refugees, SIV applicants, and others who are coming to the United States, doing that in a very thorough and clear way, and also getting them settled in communities. That's what our focus has to be on.
That he shouldn't have made those assumptions about the Afghan government? Is that the lesson for him then?
Well, I think most people made that assumption, but I don't have any more for you.
I only ask that because he said that the U.S. should learn from their mistakes, but if there's
right, and he laid out clearly what he thinks they are over the past 20 years. Yeah.
On Louisiana, the governor said that he's worried that the power outages might start affecting the hospitals. Can you make any clarification on whether or not the FEMA can do anything more to help utility companies, and whether or not there's any sort of estimates on whether or not hospitals will be affected?
Well, so initial reports from the local hospital distributor network indicate no supply chain disruptions, but he is right. I mean, this is an area where we are all watching, and this is why we are continuing to ensure there are necessary generators there, that we are engaged closely with health administrators and others about what their needs are and how we can deliver on them. One of the primary limiting factors on oxygen, which we don't see a shortage on, but is obviously an issue that we have to watch closely, is actually hazmat certified drivers. And what this is people who can drive around these oxygen tanks and facilities out to the hospital. So there's a number of pieces that we have to work through, and we are preparing in case there is a need in that regard.
Thank you, Jen. Two quick follow-ups. Yesterday I asked about the Washington Post story that reported that the Taliban offered the United States control of Kabul, and instead the United States focused on the airport. Have you been able to review that report, and is it accurate?
Well, I'm not going to speak to private conversations, but what I will tell you is that it obviously required the deployment of 6,000 U.S. military forces to secure the airport, given the Afghan National Security Forces collapsed from that protection. Our objective has never been, and the president's been very clear about this, having a military presence to control Kabul. So that's never been our objective.
You've talked about how our commitment remains to these Americans, and you talked about how we're switching from a military effort to a diplomatic effort. For the Americans who are currently in hiding and who very much want to come home, not the other set, what is the administration's message to them? Should they try and head to the border? Should they try and book a flight out of there? Or should they remain in hiding and hope that the diplomacy kicks in?
Well, I would just note that we are in touch with a number of these Americans. Not every one, perhaps, but we are in touch. We are in touch with as many of them who we can make contact with through a range of means. That continues. And what our focus is on now, and we'll have day-by-day updates, and this is a very fair and good question, is how can we ensure operationally that there are a range of options for people to be able to depart. Some of that may be over land, over borders. Some of that may be through airplanes. And so we're working again with the Qataris and the Turks on that. We're working to get the civilian side of the airport operational, but those are all pieces we're focused on.
Is the administration preparing for worst case scenario in some circumstances, hostage situations?
Look, our focus right now is on making clear to the Taliban and to others in Afghanistan that we are going to get these American citizens out, that we are going to hold them to that account, and that's our focus. Thanks, everyone. I'll be back tomorrow.
You told me that yesterday. Can I ask, now that I have your attention, can I ask you one question? Why didn't he name them?
If someone slapped her, I think it'd go so viral it'd break the internet. Just a moment. Well, that was something. She provided no information, like always, and you notice that Peter wasn't there. I seen someone mention that in the chat. They must not let him in. They knew that those hardball questions were going to break Jen Psaki down. She would not be able to hang out with Peter's questions today, so they must not let him in the room. I don't know who's worse, Jen Psaki or Old Man Walter. I think Old Man Walter's worse because you got to wait 30 minutes after he's already an hour late for him to stammer out what he means. He's only good for like the first 10 seconds, and then those injections wear off, and he's kind of running on autopilot after that. You can see him start like leaning closer and closer to the teleprompter. He starts squinting more and more. Jen Psaki's just a straight liar, just straight demon, and she's so condescending to the American people. You can tell that she thinks she's better than everybody outside of the White House. She's just, the way that she words everything is so rude and condescending and obnoxious. Like I said, if somebody just gave her a good quick slap right across the face, I think the internet would go wild and then it would break down. That would be everywhere. That would be everywhere. Good Lord, maybe one day we'll see it. We'll see. Anyways, thank you guys so much for being here. You guys are awesome. We got some shout outs to do. Let's see. Thank you so much, Joe, Shannon, Patricia, and RV Sarah. Thank you guys so much for your donations and your support. I really appreciate you. Big shout out to the Shelf Guy who made a very generous donation through PayPal yesterday that I happened to miss before cutting off the live feed. So hopefully you are watching, and thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Please subscribe or follow on whatever platform you are currently watching. We go live every day, sometimes more than once a day. So please subscribe or follow in order to grow that platform so we can reach new viewers and get the truth out to them. Big shout out to everyone that made donations, joined the membership program, or purchased any merch. I really appreciate all of you. You guys are what keeps this going, and I would not be able to do this without you. So thank you so much. Also join the Discord. The Discord is a free app that you download from the Play Store or whatever iPhone has. Then you go to any of my lives, no matter what platform it's on, go in the description and find the link for the Discord. All of the links have been switched over to the link tree, so if you click that lonely little link in the description, it will have all of my links together on a list. The list is kind of lengthy, but at the same time I've provided titles and logos and stuff, so it shouldn't be that difficult. Join the Discord, follow the few simple steps. You'll be greeted with an automated message letting you know that you've done all you need to do in order to receive notifications for when and where we go live every single time we go live. We also have very awesome conversation and information flowing in 24 hours a day through the general chat and all the other tabs that I've provided. Definitely be a part of the conversation is the best way to be informed and be on the front lines of what is happening around us 24 hours a day, not just here in America, but all across the world at this point. We try to keep an eye on everything because if it's happening overseas, it's only a matter of time before it's here at home. So we try to keep informed on everything. We have tons of information pouring in, so please join the Discord. It is worth it. I promise it is worth it. Even if you don't want to be a part of the conversation, you will no longer have to comment on my videos after they are not live and say, oh, I missed the notification, or YouTube didn't give me the notification, or I didn't get the notification from Facebook or wherever. If you're a part of the Discord, you will always receive the notification for when and where we go live. So please join the Discord. I hate having to respond to hooligans who are like, oh man, I missed the live, I didn't get to see it, and I have to respond like, join the Discord. I say it every single day, multiple times a day. People get tired of me saying it, but it is necessary. We need everyone to be a part of the Discord if you want to receive notifications and be here when we go live, because sometimes it happens quickly, sometimes it's abruptly, sometimes we don't have a warning that it is time to go live, and I can't always get the notifications out on Twitter, Gab, Facebook, everywhere that I post, all 6 or 7 platforms that I put a notification on. But if you are on Discord, you will automatically receive a notification. I have an automated system on there, but I also hand type out a notification to the people on Discord. So most of the hooligans receive 2 notifications, one from Thoughtbot and one from me directly. So definitely be a part of the Discord. It is worth it. Also, follow me on everything. I'm live on Twitter. I'm not live on Twitter, but I'm very active on Twitter. There's a lot of information that circulates on Twitter. But if you connect with me on all platforms that I've provided on the link tree, if something was to happen in one spot, you will still be able to be informed and figure out where we're heading next. They're not going to shut down all platforms at once. I'm not big enough for that. I'm not Alex Jones. They're not going to blackball me across the board. So if you are connected to me in multiple platforms, you will always know what's happening around us. We are constantly evolving and growing, so be connected more than just YouTube and Discord. Like, join everything. It doesn't cost anything. It's all free. It might take a little bit of effort, but how important is being informed to you? Like, how important is it to know the truth and to know what's going on when it is happening? That's what you need to think about when you decide whether or not you want to follow me on Twitter or any of these other platforms. I work very hard to keep the information flowing 24 hours a day. I sleep very little because of it, but it is important to me that all of us are on the same page, that all of us are moving together, that we are all united. It is very important to me. So thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate all of you. If you can't tell, I'm not sure what else is happening today. I know starting today the truckers have shut down. It is for them to stand against the mandates. Some people have mentioned that there's going to be protests about it today. I will be looking for that. I do have to go get some food and stuff. I have not eaten yet today, and it is already 5 o'clock. It's a little bit after 5 here on the Eastern time. So I do have to go do some real live human stuff. But I will be keeping my eyes open for lives. I know it's been pretty active lately. Again, 4 o'clock in the morning. One of the live streamers went live at the southern border. I got the notification, but I was actually sleeping at that time. And like I mentioned yesterday, it's hard for me to juggle everything because if I'm getting up at 4 o'clock to cover the southern border, I don't know that we're going to make it to these press briefings, or if I'm going to end up sleeping through a protest sometime in the afternoon. I am working on it. I know a lot of people want to see what's happening on the border. I wish I didn't have to sleep. Honestly, I wish I didn't have to sleep because then I could just cover this stuff 24 hours a day and not worry about it. But we will get this worked out. I will figure this out one way or another, and we will try and cover everything that's happening around us. But thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate all of you. I will see you on the next live, and until then, stand tall, shine bright, and that's a wrap.